now that Public Protector's provisional report, the Office of the PP, saying it's now been handed out to all affected or implicated parties. Her investigation into the Phala farm saga, the theft of foreign currency, and whether President Cyril Ramaphosa was guilty of an ethics violation. In that case, she is now cleared. The office, at least I should say, has cleared Ramaphosa, but there are findings against other people involved in the matter. Let's get the reaction now of the DA Leader John Steenhuisen. A very good evening to you, Mr. Steenhuisen. Oh, well, good afternoon, excuse me. Grateful for your time. And you have said the leaking of this report is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate because the report is a preliminary report, and this report was meant to give stakeholders an opportunity to interact with the Public Protector's Office over issues of dispute or where we think things have not been correctly captured. And certainly, it's very difficult for me to go into it in any detail because of the rules relating to it. But this leak has obviously compromised our ability to be able to deal with this in terms of following the rules. And yes, I mean, certainly if my reading of the preliminary report, there's been a misunderstanding clearly of our complaint, and there's also a number of anomalies and contradictions within the report. And we're concerned, obviously, with this, and we will put those, as the process dictates, in writing to the Public Protector within the 10-day period provided, and hope that these would be rectified or captured in the final report that is released. So no one's been exonerated and nobody's been formally charged or as a result of this. It remains a preliminary report, and I think the President and the Presidency are being very premature by saying that, well, they welcome it because he's off the hook.
Well, for this report to change drastically, there'd have to be, I'd imagine, significant submissions to the contrary as far as what the draft has so far found, which, if this were to be the final report, the President would be in the clear.
Well, we know that Public Protector reports are subject to drastic changes between the draft and the final report, and there's been lots of litigation around those particular matters, including an inquiry in Parliament that's currently underway. So we will follow the process now. We will point out where we believe the original complaint, particularly around the conflict of interest between Mr. Ramaphosa, the businessman, and Mr. Ramaphosa, the President, and the blurring of the lines there that we regard as a conflict of interest, as well as some of the contradictions that we've picked up in the report. And we'll obviously take those forward. Once a final report is produced, that then gives any of the aggrieved parties an opportunity to take it on review. And we've seen, certainly over the course of the last 3 to 4 years, the Public Protector's reports have almost all been taken on review, and they're very seldom held up in court once those review processes begin. But obviously that's very premature. We need to see the final report so we have a final target, not a moving target, to be able to make a decision about how we proceed.
But if this was the final report, and given what you've been able to read since you got it last night, it's the sort of report that as the DA you would take on review?
Well, certainly, if I look at the report and its current content and its misconception and misconstruing of the complaint that we laid, as well as the President's own testimony, which we believe feeds very much into proving that, we would certainly at this stage look to take it on review. Bear in mind as well, there's also a parallel process going on with Parliament where we are pushing for an ad hoc committee to be able to deal with this matter, because now we have this draft report by the Public Protector that says one thing. We've got a Section 89 report that says something else, and we're no wiser or closer to the truth or what really happened at Phala. And we've had the new information coming out this week around the SARS not having missed that money being declared upon arrival at the port of entry. So this thing has got a lot of angles still that need to be finalized and looked into. And we believe fundamentally that an ad hoc committee in Parliament is going to be the right way to go. They can look at both reports in whatever form they may come, can summon and subpoena people who clearly the Public Protector was not able to have much headway with, and get to the bottom of what really happened there. So I think there's a long way to go still till we know exactly what went down at Phala and why that crime remained unreported for 2 years, and why the Presidential Protection Unit was used to go and secure the money that was due to a private business interest of the President.
And am I right to say, as things stand, the DA's core issue with this draft report has to do with what you've said is the misunderstanding of the conflict of interest that warranted investigation, according to you. To the extent to which you're comfortable to expand, where do you think the misunderstanding has arisen?
So I obviously can't go into details about where the report errs. I would simply say this, though. The Constitution is very clear that any public office bearer, and particularly the President, must not produce or put themselves in a position where there can be a conflict of interest between their private interests and their public interests. Now, the President has maintained throughout, and including in various testimonies, that that this is a private business enterprise of his. It's got nothing to do with his role as head of state, and he's a shareholder and a trustee in the corporate entity there, and that this money was used and paid for Buffalo in result of a private transaction. And so the question then begs, why was the Presidential Protection Unit then used to go into another country to conduct domestic investigations with no mandate whatsoever from the South African Police Service, no mandate whatsoever from the line function commanders within the South African Police Service, and with no case number? And no other citizen would be able to have a case investigated in South Africa, firstly by the Presidential Protection Services, and secondly without a case number. And it's ironic because just last week this is the same president who was calling out Andre de Ruyter for not going and opening a case at the police. There was never a case number with this in this particular matter, and yet the Presidential Protection Service, which is a service paid for by the public purse, was used to pursue money that was stolen from a private enterprise belonging to the President, and it's something that no other citizen has access to, and that is a conflict of interest.
And for that, pardon me, sir, for that to be most damning, I'd imagine, especially the pursuit of people who are allegedly involved in the theft of this $580,000, there'd have to be a direct link, I'd imagine, also at some point between what the President knew, whether he gave any instructions as well for that to happen, for it to really bite as far as he's concerned, right? Even if there are findings made against the leader of the Presidential Protection Unit and others who were involved in the alleged pursuit of the suspects.
Well, I can talk about what is in the public domain, and what's already in the public domain is that the President had two discussions with Wally Rhoode that we know about. One was in Addis Ababa and the other took place at Hyde Park. And it's very clear that the President was involved in discussing this matter with Wally Rhoode. And I think it would be odd then that the person who carried out the instructions is made the fall guy in this, and the person who clearly gave the instruction and direction gets away scot-free. There's something fundamentally wrong with that. And that's certainly one of the things that we would continue to pursue, and why I also think a parliamentary ad hoc committee is required. So we can subpoena the President, summon him to Parliament, we can subpoena Wally Rhoode, summon him to Parliament, and let's get the real facts out there on the table at what went down. Why did Mr. Rhoode accompany the President's own special advisor with no authority whatsoever with the SAPS, line function management, to Namibia? Why was there subterfuge around the discussion with the Namibian government? These are all things that need to be transversed.
And that's Bajani Chowdhury, whom you're referring to there. He is mentioned in this report. You, by the way, for people just joining this conversation, are unable to speak in detail about the findings because, as per the law, once people such as yourself, the interested parties, have received the copy, you're not to discuss it or share the details publicly, right? When will you be able to write back to the Public Protector with the notes or the issues that you wish to query?
Well, in line with the letter that we received from the Public Protector, we have within 10 days, I imagine it's 10 working days, to make those submissions. And I've already been in discussion with our legal team, and we will make those submissions. And I said, point out where we think the report is erred, to give the Public Protector's office an opportunity to relook at some of those. And if they stand by their existing manifestation of the report, well, that's their choice to make. But we will then obviously have to make our own choices thereafter in the pursuit of justice and the truth in this particular matter.
So we've got two reports already on the Phala issue, one from the independent panel established by Parliament. Yes, this that we're talking about today is a leaked, very preliminary report that is possibly going to change, may change later after such contributions such as yours, for instance. But given the very distinct differences, contradictions in what it says on the president and whether there's a case for him to answer, how confused will we all be at the end of the multiple other investigations, especially if they say different things?
Well, that's exactly why we believe the ad hoc is required, because there's one arena of executive accountability in the country that the Constitution highlights, and that's Parliament. And as members of Parliament, we should be getting to the bottom of this to find out whether there have been conflicts of interest and whether the President violated his oath of office and what really went down there, where exchange control violations, whether it was how this money got into the country without being declared at the port of entry. And that's why we need to have the truth. And once we have the truth on the table, then we can make decisions about how we proceed with these particular matters. So as it currently stands, you've got contradictory reports from the Section 89 Committee, this preliminary report, and we obviously are awaiting other reports as well. Where is the DPCI report? Where's the SAPS investigation? Where is the SARS and the Reserve Bank investigation into these things? These are the things we need to get on the table, and then Parliament must make up its mind about how we proceed on this. But to just leave it hanging in the air now with this report says this report says that, I don't think is satisfactory. I think we need to know what the President knew when he knew it, what he did about it, what he intends to do about it, and how far up the chain this particular matter goes.
Leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, good to have your time. Thank you.